it's a site like TikTok where it literally can end up on anybody's For You page, and y'all still decided to go along and not only film the video, but be dumb enough to post it. Y'all are so dumb if you don't think that blatant racism is still a thing, because there's videos like this all over the internet. But respectfully, that's not gonna happen at our school. And I hope that whoever is in charge of University of Miami and handling situations like this sees this and realizes how not okay it is and how many Black people are very offended by this video.
Well, they are going to say it. The story went viral. It did because that woman, her name is Sky Solomon, put it up. Found the story on daily.com. And what happened here was the kids say they were doing this for a marketing class. And they had the cutaway of a Black man there who is later identified to be a professor. It would have just been another campy video, but they decided to do that. Now, I want to show you what at Kane Critters rather, is saying, because they took down the video after it went viral and they posted this statement later. Took down the video, they even took the whole TikTok down, but now it's back up. They claim the post was composed of 2 unaffiliated clips, campus-related animal question, and then a smirk from a man pleased by the interviewer's position in a tree. So they're basically saying, hey, we just put up a lot of videos, we spliced things together, and this was a horrible accident. Nonetheless, we're upset and we're embarrassed by this. We're just a team of students who created the account, again, as a class project, they say, which is absolutely ridiculous, because the real answer is they thought it was funny because somebody back there is racist. And I want to know what you think about it, Dr. Ritchie, because I think Sky Solomon did some good work here. The school's reacting. They've been, on top of it. They say they're investigating. They might have violated the student conduct code.
I think the college students are lying about, how this happened. And also, an institution has a responsibility to protect students and faculty from discriminatory practices. As a college professor, I have to take basically this adherence exam every year, and it goes over the protocols. Well, one protocol is that the institution has a responsibility to protect from active discrimination. And if you do not take measures to do so, you can then lose all of your federal funding that goes to the school. That's one dynamic. Here's another one. I like how the young lady decided to approach this. You have to check it exactly as it is. I'm glad she did it. We need more people to continue to engage in the art of exposure and storytelling. Well done.
Yeah, if we could show the graphic of what the school is saying, the Miami Hurricane newspaper, because I agree 100%. The school is reacting. Racism and hate have no place at the University of Miami. Deeply committed, they say, to sustaining a culture of belonging where every individual is valued and supported. And they say, hey, we appreciate they took responsibility, but we're investigating this to determine if there were any violations of the student rights and responsibility. You are aware of on your end as a professor, and we'll see if they face consequences here, or if somebody's gonna believe that lame excuse of, it was an accident, we didn't mean to edit the Black man. By the way, other people in the comment section who are outraged say that Black man they did the cutaway is a professor at the university at the U.
That is correct. And here's the other dynamic, really interesting connection to this story. You will have to work hard to make sure institutions are not defined by your most, let's say, disagreeable individuals like these folks, right? So I appreciate the fact that she is refusing to allow her educational experience, her school, to be defined by these people. Good job on that. All right, always a pleasure, Sharon, have you on the show. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
I appreciate you more at Sharon Reed Live across all platforms. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, always a pleasure. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Hello and welcome to the show. So glad that you are here. We got a lot that we're going to try to cover in this hour. We have, shoot, here we go again. President Donald J. Trump made the big announcement. He's doing it yet again. We have Rikers continues to be hell on earth. We need to shut it down. And finally, we've got a class act neoliberal for you, a WTF neoliberals. Today, I am with the one and only Mayor Mondale Robinson. So glad to have him in the house. And Mayor, before we get started, I have to wish a very happy birthday to the one and only Keith Hall. Happy birthday. Mayor, how you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm in your presence, so I'm good. Good to see you.
Oh, I feel the same way about you. We're gonna do this thing. So we're gonna start off with former President Donald J. Trump. He's doing it again. Here we go. Watch this.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Oh yeah, President Donald J. Trump, he said in order to make America great and glorious again, he is running because only he can make America great and glorious. Let's just go and put that on the record according to him. So he announced his run last night at Mar-a-Lago in a 63-minute speech. Tragically for him, he was criticized for having uncharacteristically low energy. You remember when he labeled one of his other competitors low energy? He had low energy himself. He spent much of the speech repeating the same lines from his rallies, which include criticizing President Biden's approach, economic record, and calling for voting reform. Take a listen to the highlights from his speech.
People think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying. We will not let men, as an example, participate in women's sports. Is that okay? Everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts. These are savages. They say, oh, please don't use that name. They're people. No, they're not. These are savages. And the socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, and the many crippling regulations that it has spawned, will be immediately terminated so that our country can again breathe and grow and thrive like it should. And I was with President Xi, who's now president for life. I call him king. He said, no, I'm not the king. I said, yes, you are the king. You're president for life. It's the same thing.
President for life. This is really what he's after. And just all of the hate speech. We need to buckle up and get ready because he's gonna double down on all of that, whether it's racist, transphobic, I mean, you name it. That is what we have in store. Mayor, your thoughts about this grand announcement to make America great and glorious again?
I'm baffled at what I heard last night, and these clips just highlighted it exceptionally. Listen, let's be honest. Donald Trump is responsible for everything good that has ever happened in America, even before he was born. We can't even pretend. He said last night, excuse me, this gentleman doesn't even know how long the presidential term was. He said for decades and decades he was responsible for no wars. You were only president for 4 years. He said it was him and the great warriors that stopped all the Muslims' attack on America. This guy is so disgusting in his thought. He's beyond sick, and that is not a joke. I'm not saying that hyperbole. He's a narcissist. I think the benefit of Donald Trump running again is the exposure, how many candidates we get to expose and how many progressives will once again win. We saw progressives make unbelievable gains in 2020 with him on the ballot. So I'm excited about Donald Trump throwing his hat in again. One, because it points out how dumb American politics are and what people are willing to do for whiteness. And then also it reminds us of what's possible when progressives run. So maybe we win in the primary big, and we don't have to worry about so many Donald Trump followers. But I think this is not the voice from where the Republican Party has been going in a long time. We can't just act like Donald Trump bent this arc by himself. Ronald Reagan too was equally as special as Donald Trump, and by special I mean dumb. So I think when we exclude all the lies of Ronald Reagan, when we exclude all of the shenanigans of Ronald Reagan, selling arms, taking the money, illegally using it to launch a drug war, dumping drugs in black communities, and then denying it all while he talked about welfare queens, we see a direct path to where we are right now. So this is not a divorce from American politics at all.
Mayor, you bring up some very strong points, the whole Oliver North, just the fact, but with Reagan, he was more polished, I guess that's the word I could use to be PG about it. Then Donald J. Trump is the difference between the fox and the wolf, and at least you know exactly where the wolf is coming from. And the wolf in this case would be Donald J. Trump. But he definitely has a new angle now. Yeah, President Donald J. Trump has a new angle. Take a listen to this.
And I'm a victim, I will tell you. I'm a victim. Think of it.
So now he is a victim. The strong man is now a victim. The real victims, though, the people that had to stand there and watch. Some people thought they could leave, but they couldn't. Watch this.
Help is on the way. Joe Biden has abolished America's borders. We are going to restore and secure America's borders just like we had them before, best ever. We built the wall, and now we will add to it. Now we built the wall. We completely.
And as you can see, people were milling about trying to get out of that room, and Mayor, they couldn't get out.
Oh no, once you sign up for this circus, you're here for life. So they learned the hard way. I think, listen, we have a wonderful opportunity. I just got to keep talking about this opportunity that we have, because I'm left of left. And I think what we get to see right now is Donald Trump, the longer he speaks and they try to force him to read off a teleprompter, you're gonna get low energies. It's not until he starts winging it that we get the Donald Trump that we're used to, the bombastic Donald Trump. Forcing him to read something that someone prepared. Even last night, he still couldn't do it for long. And what we're gonna see is people getting tired and walking out. The problem though is the Republicans chose too long to wait before they can walk out. So even those, like the people in the room, those that are elected in the party have waited too long to walk away. And Donald Trump will wreak havoc on that party for the 2024 elections, presidential election cycle.
Yes, he will. And he is definitely a street fighter. So if they think they getting out, you're right. They waited too long and they let this bubble up because they were benefiting from it, and now they can't control it. And Donald J. Trump, hopefully, Mayor, this will be the last run for him once and for all. So his family, even his family, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. They don't want anything to do with this mess either. And right now on Ivanka's Instagram story, let's share this with our viewers. She laid out that she loves her father, no doubt, I don't question that. But she said, this time around, I'm choosing to prioritize my young children and the private life we are creating as a family. I do not plan to be involved in politics. While I will always love and support my father going forward, I will do so outside the political arena. I am grateful to have had the honor of serving the American people, and I will always be proud of many of our administration's accomplishments. So that is coming from his eldest daughter, Ivanka Trump, who, the president definitely puts on a pedestal. All the mainstream outlets handled this announcement quite differently. NPR handled it this way: breaking. Donald Trump, who tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 presidential election and inspired a deadly riot at the Capitol in a desperate attempt to keep himself in power, has filed to run for president again in 2024. Meanwhile, CNN took a different path. They had a different tone. Former President Donald Trump announces another run for the White House and enters the 2024 race, aiming to become only the second US president ever elected to 2 non-consecutive terms. So Mayor, what are your thoughts about what is behind Donald Trump's insistence that he should in fact run again?
I mean, well, listen, Donald Trump is an honest liar, right? If you listen to his speech, the use of I, Donald Trump really believes that he can save the world even when he's burning it down. And I think we need to pay attention to that. There's no truth in his soul, but he believes everything wholeheartedly that he says, even though he's lying. I think what's in it is ego. That's simply ego, and also the ability to enrich himself. And he would love to be president, or as he called it, king, president for life, king. He joked about it when he was president during his administration, and the fact that he's running again, trying to do something that's not happened in this country since the 1800s, is absolutely telling that Donald Trump, someone who is facing charges, numerous charges for trying to tear down this very government, this very democracy he's looking to make great again, is telling of who and how he thinks and see the world. I think, to be honest about his daughter, I don't think she's not participating because she's trying to care about her young children's lives, because they were younger the last time around. So I think it's more about she can't stand to have more charges faced. She don't want to face any more charges, her and her husband. Plus they raked in a lot of money while they were in the White House, and I think they're sitting comfortable.
Yeah, they did, and they were very close to the heat, but absolutely they benefited, that entire family, enriched themselves in ways that I wish I could say were unknown. We have a lot of people, unfortunately, in the halls of Congress who enriched themselves similarly as the Trump family did. But Mayor, you have a very strong point. They were too close to the fire and they don't want to get burned again. Well, we will continue to watch this as Donald J. Trump announces his run for the 2024 presidential election cycle. No one is surprised here. I guess the thing that really is getting to me just a little bit, Mayor, is how there is really no daylight between presidential elections anymore. I knew, and we said on the show, as soon as this midterm election was over, the presidential election started. I said the next day, but it probably really started that night.
Yeah, I think it's telling, and the irony of him being so arrogant, still announcing after the Republicans lost, and the Republicans did lose. We gotta call it what it is. If you go back and look as far as you can look in presidential, the first midterm for president is supposed to be a whammy shack. That didn't happen. I mean, the Democrats held the Senate, and the Republicans are still fighting to this point to get their control of the House. Not to mention some of the pickups on the state and local levels. So I think what's beautiful though is his speech was lackluster. Republicans' performance in 2022 was lackluster, and that's telling for what progressives can do going forward.
I hope that is the case, man. I want you to be right, and you used the key phrase. You said progressives. You didn't say neoliberals. You said this is a path forward for progressives. We're gonna keep on pushing on that. And speaking of pushing, lawyers speak out against what's happened at Rikers with the detainees there. This prison definitely needs to be closed down. It should have been closed a long time ago. It is like hell on earth. So lawyers representing the detainees there are deploying a last-ditch effort to do something about it. Let's look at this headline. Lawyers for Rikers detainees will ask judge to impose federal control. Now, you know it's really serious when they asking the feds to step in. As conditions deteriorate, lawyers say it is time for last resort oversight of Rikers Island. This year, 18 people have died after having been held in New York City jails. We're gonna put up this from the New York Times. The lawyer's intention to request an outsider called a receiver to run the jails was conveyed in a letter filed by a federal official appointed to monitor the island's lockup, where close to 5,900 people are held. The letter could be the first step in a drawn out process that determines the future of Rikers, where conditions have deteriorated precipitously over the past 2 years. So if you haven't been up to speed, here's a reminder of what these detainees have been dealing with. We have a tweet that really puts it out there. Dewan Tatro laid it out. Today, Rikers Island claimed its 18th victim this year. The death toll in New York City jails is at its highest since 2013. People are not just dying on this island. The jail is killing them through a combination of mismanagement, racism, poor conditions. It's a hellhole. Mary, you know, I had covered this before. We're really staying on top of this. And when I saw these photographs, and these photographs, you know, came and really highlight what the conditions are. A picture is certainly worth 1,000 words. And it did remind me ever so slightly, but it reminded me of the bow of slave ships and how people, you know, Africans and our ancestors, Africans, were chained together. They couldn't turn to the left or the right. There was defecation everywhere, heat, sweltering. You know, it was just a really extraordinarily inhumane, cruel situation. This is not exactly like that, but the fact that people are laying on the floor, they have to defecate there, they can't get out of there. And most of those people are Black. It just gave me flashbacks to that. And Mayor, before you weigh in, I want to look at what Rebecca Kavanaugh had to say. State violence, correction staff ignored Venezuela as he lay dying on Rikers Island, leading other people detained in his housing unit to carry him to the clinic where they were refused entry. They carried him back to their unit where he died a half an hour later. How brutal beatings on this island were hidden from the public. Another headline lays it out. One man was paralyzed from the neck down. Another landed in landed in a coma. Neither injury was documented properly in the New York City jail system, awash in disorder. I repeat, this is hell on earth. And check out this headline from just last week. Engaged Rikers Island guards and a third are charged after faking sick leave for a year while still being paid $140,000 a year, as the notorious prison was overrun with staffing issues and suicides. 3 prison guards allegedly scammed the taxpayer-funded system and took salaries worth hundreds of thousands of dollars while out on fake sick leave. I'm almost speechless over what is going on at the island. And I use that word loosely because to call it an island, I mean, when you say the word island, you think of paradise, and this is literally hell.
Yeah, I think people should pay close attention to your first point about our ancestors' trip to this country, our forced migration, and what's happening at Rikers, because it matters when you know that 56% of the people look like you and me. 56% of the people in that prison, and I should say it another way, only 7% of the people in there are white. Had this been a majority white people, this probably wouldn't be the case. And we can acknowledge or cannot not acknowledge the fact that there are months and months of backlogs of police officers brutally beating inmates. And people should know that. We shouldn't even call these people inmates. And that's a horrible term for me to use. We should also make sure that this distinction that this is not a prison. This is a jail. These people, this is a pretrial holding. No one in there is guilty of anything. They're waiting trial. So to be exposed to such hard is absolutely disgusting. And knowing that 67,000 people are cycled through Rikers a year is absolutely disgusting. It's also why New York City, if it was its own place, if it was its own country, would be the 57th largest prison industrial complex in the world. That means that's just Rikers Island cycling people through there. And we gotta say it, Black and brown people through there over and over, exposing people to all of this traumatic incidents where you see people getting killed, where you see officers, which is state violence, officers beating people unprovoked. And then you also have the stabbings from other people that are locked up in there that has risen to a 12-year high. We are watching something that is so inhumane that it can only exist in America. Let me say that again. It is so inhumane, it can only exist in America. I mean, Tajikistan has a safer prison complex than America does.
My God, Mayor, and you really laying this out, and you're right, it is not a prison. It has prison-like conditions, but thank you for pulling even me back on that. It is a jail, but every time I look at those pictures and I hear the horror stories, I think prison. This is the United States of America, and the feds need to step in right away. This should be not non-negotiable that they step in and clean this mess up. And also your point that a lot of people, not only there at Rikers, but all across the country are placed in jail and they haven't been charged with anything. That is why so many of us are fighting for bail reform, because the need to have bail is a penalty on being poor. And many of the people at Rikers right now, that is their situation. Haven't been charged with a daggone thing, but they can't meet bail. And there were several articles that came out that really laid out that when you send somebody there, like some attorneys for the defendants there had meetings with prosecutors to beg them, Mayor, please don't send anybody there, because when you send them there, you are literally sending them possibly to a death sentence. That's how bad that place is in the United States of America. So while we thumb our nose at other countries, we need to take care of our house first. Look at the man and the woman and the person in the mirror before we start trying to check other folks right here in the United States of America. We have other headlines. It's also worth noting that the erroneous lengths of stay at Rikers, 10 years a detainee, while some spend years on Rikers despite right to a speedy trial. Rikers Island was designed to hold people accused of crimes less than a year. While have some detainees been there for 6, 8, and even 10 years. This is a scourge on the United States of America. This is a scourge on the great state of New York. And I wonder why Well, we already know why, Mayor. Unfortunately, Mayor Eric Adams seems to find no issue with this. Let's put up this headline. After disturbing Rikers images emerge, Adams once again balks at federal receivership. Now, I'm gonna say to you, the mayor is black. And Mayor Robinson, this is not an identity play for me. But especially, we would think especially somebody who is black, who understands the plight of black people, of brown people, of poor people, and that is his city, and he has power to change this, would have some compassion and empathy for what is going on there. And then even if he doesn't have that, would say, not on my watch, well, 18 people died. Not on my watch will this kind of chaos and mayhem go on. But his pride is getting in his way, so he balks at receivership. Mayor.
Well, I like to call Mayor Adams black and blue because his origin, and we ain't talking about stakes here. We ain't talking about a Pittsburgh state. We're talking about his history and his love for police. I mean, this is a law and order.
And he's a former police officer.
He absolutely is, and he's law and order. He came in talking about law and order. Don't forget, this is the man that called himself the Brooklyn Biden. I don't know no black man referring to himself as a white man unless you got some issues that we need to sit down with a therapist and talk about. And plus, we know Biden's history with black people up and extending, writing policies, creating policies to ensure that people had longer than necessary sentences. So when you think about that, or think about that in the context, Adam is falling right in line where he belongs, or where his thinking belongs, which is absolutely antithetical to the benefit of black folk, especially those spending 10, 6, and 5 years in Rikers, or I should say 5 minutes even in Rikers.
Yeah, no doubt. And not only is Rikers Island one of the most dysfunctional and violent prisons the country has ever seen, it is insanely expensive. The jail on Rikers Island is both appalling and generously funded. So people get funded for this type of dysfunction. It costs $438,000 to jail one person for 1 year there. Yeah, this is not a typo. I didn't misspeak. $438,000 to jail one person there for a year. And this is the US prison system at work. We need to follow the money. The US spends $81 billion a year on mass incarceration, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And that figure might be an underestimate. In 2017, the Prison Policy Initiative estimated the actual cost on state and federal governments and impacted families is roughly $182 billion a year. Thank you, PBS, for laying that out. So it's not a surprise given how the United States ranks number one in incarceration. And Mayor, you were laying that out. Let's take a look at this. The top 10 countries with the most people in prison. Why is it that America ranks number one for all the bad stuff, but never number one for the good stuff? So we see even China, Brazil, India, Russia, Thailand, Turkey, Indonesia, Mexico, and even Iran, for the love of God. So we don't need a receivership at Rikers. We need to shut it down totally. It needs to go. So for those of you who believe in justice, you need to get on this. For you New Yorkers, you need to get on the mayor. And for those of you in the legislature there, for the love of God, use your power. And to the United States on the federal level, yeah, come on in there and clean this place up and shut it down. We'll be right back after this. Don't you go anywhere. Call a friend or a friend of me. We'll be back.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problems problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to the show. Mayor Robinson and I were having a really deep conversation about what's happening on Rikers Island. We're gonna continue that conversation, but I'm gonna pause for a minute because this is my favorite part of the show, as you know, and that is the viewer comments. So our TYT members, we have Mickey says, Ivanka equals Jared, and I gifted over 640 million while we squatted. Woo, at the White House. It's getting too hot here, so we'll move on to other crimes before we have to pay for the ones we already committed. Go ahead on, Mickey. Lay it down the way it should be. You are so right. On Twitch, Overseer Dixon says, Donald doesn't know anything about glorious. What's glorious? I'm glad you asked. Your bearded Mr. Mayor, your beard is glorious. So glad seeing you on Unbossed. Mayor, your beard is glorious, according to Overseer Dixon. That's what's glorious. Donald Trump don't know what glorious is, but you do, Mayor. Glorious beard, I love it. And on YouTube Super Chat, Gray Beard Dragon says, love your hair today. Hello, somebody. Oh, thank you, Gray Beard Dragon. So we got glorious beards and fantastic hair. We on to something. Man, I think it's always good to pause for a fashion moment. I am not mad at it. Thank you all of the viewers, all of the subscribers. Thank you all for supporting independent media. Thank you for supporting Unbossed. Thank you for supporting the TYT network. The mayor and I needed that moment of levity because this is some heavy stuff that we're talking about on Rikers Island. So the mayor, when we were on break, you were talking about the jails or the lack of jails in the great state of North Carolina before the Civil War. So please share that with our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, and people, we have this idea in this country right now that we've always lived with police. There's always been police, but that's not the case. In 1868, the state of North Carolina had 0 prisons. And it wasn't until after the Civil War that the legislature decided that they needed to control these newly freed Negroes, and they mandated, the Constitution of 1868 mandated that we create state prisons. And that's when the state began to become a prison population, expanding the prison population, basically sending people back to the same plantations, renting those bodies back to the same plantation for next to nothing.
Yeah, debt peonage, they could just lock up Black folks, pull them off the streets for no reason and take away their lives, really hold them in bondage without calling it that. Because especially after the power was restored to the former slaveholders, business went back to business as usual after the federal troops pulled out, and they pulled out for political reasons. For you want to talk about a grand bargain? They pulled out for a grand bargain and left millions of African Americans, freed people to fend for themselves, and gave control back to the same slaveholders that controlled the system before. And man, I'm glad that you bringing us up on the fact that the way that we think about the injustice system in prison and how we house people and how we treat people, that in this country for so long, that was not the case until Black people became free. And now all of a sudden, how the white power structure really felt about Black bodies manifested itself in a criminal system, a legal system, I should say, that made sure that they had places to throw Black bodies in. It is absolutely disgusting, just like what is happening on Rikers Island. So thankfully, there are activists in the streets of New York calling for vital action, just like there were activists back in the 1800s to 1900s. You're always gonna find activists, always people who are willing to put something on the line to stand up for justice. So November the 3rd, advocates held a rally at City Hall Park demanding that Rikers is closed. 18 hours for 18 deaths and 18 mock Department of Correction body bags were lined up across the sidewalks in that protest. Organizers included the Freedom Agenda and Vocal New York and the Halt Solidarity campaign. So glad that they did that. That is coming from Amsterdam News. And I also want you to watch this video from the New York City Council member. And we're gonna play what happened during this.
So my council member colleague, Lincoln Ressler, has already said what this council is committed to doing. We are committed to absolutely shutting down Rikers Island. With the 18 lives lost to the death penalty that is Rikers Island, this is injustice.
It is.
This is causing the rippling impacts of violence, ripping apart families, ripping apart communities. And I refuse to accept that that is what New York City is about. We need to put money in mental health services and treatments, not building and expanding our jails.
Many thanks to Councilwoman Hanif for standing up, and I would love to have her on the show. And Mayor, hopefully we can have you back at that segment when we have her on as a guest so she can talk about her fight to close down Rikers Island. A new approach is really necessary in this country. That's really what this comes down to. I want you to check out this headline, how some European prisons are based on dignity instead of dehumanization, instead of dehumanizing. Apologies, you guys, that is a tongue twister for me. Based on dignity instead of dehumanizing the people who are held. Prisons in Northern Europe are actually supportive and they see lower rates of violence and recidivism. If we want to decrease recidivism rates, then we really have to make a person's time in these institutions one that really helps to rehabilitate them. The bottom line is that most people, Mayor, as we know, are not sent to prison for life. They are coming back out. In what condition do we want them to come back out? Do we want to keep putting them in situations that strip their humanity? Or do we want to put them in situations that, yes, they pay their debt to society, but also we help to edify them and lift them and to help them be better citizens when they return back to their communities? Really, the choice is ours. We are not locked into the system as it is right now. It can be a new system. Mayor, I'm with you on that. We're gonna do this again, Mayor. We will continue to talk about this. We need to do an explainer on this, and we definitely want to have Councilwoman Hanif on here to talk about her efforts. President Biden is asking the Congress for more money for the nation of Ukraine, $37 billion in emergency aid. That is what is happening. Let's put up that headline so people can see it. President Joe Biden is asking Congress to provide more than $37 billion in emergency aid to Ukraine, a massive infusion of cash that could help support the nation as Russian forces suffer battlefield losses in their 9-month-old invasion. Now, let us not forget that Congress has already authorized $40 billion. If the request is approved, it will be over $77 billion and counting towards Ukraine. The administration's funding request which comes as lawmakers begin their post-election season, also seeks a $9.2 billion in COVID-19 funding to prepare for a possible winter surge and help combat the virus nationwide. Government funding expires in mid-December, and the Ukraine and COVID aid would be a part of the package to fund the government through the end of September 2020. So let me just break this down for you. It's lame duck, and they're trying to get everything that they can through right now. Amir, your thoughts on more money for Ukraine?
A couple things, because more than one thing can be true at once. We absolutely need to support Ukraine's effort to defend themselves and their sovereignty. I think the fact that 21.7 billion of this money is for military, and then 14 billion is for aid, humanitarian aid, lets us know that people are suffering, not just those in the military, but folk that are just living in Ukraine. So that's the first thing. I feel that way. I also need to point out that the United States government has given less than $1 billion to the Black people of Detroit. And if we could spend $400,000 per person to imprison people in Rikers Island, there's definitely more we could be doing for people with dirty water in Flint, dirty water in Mississippi. So I think we just need to make sure that our country is keeping our priorities front and center and being good neighbors to those who don't live in these geopolitical borders.
Mayor, you're gonna have me take my microphone off and jump out my seat. But I know Marissa would not like that at all, and neither would the rest of the team. But I'm almost about to do that right now. I'm shouting amen and hallelujah to what you had to say. Both can be true. This is a both and. From my tradition, the Christian tradition, the Black liberation tradition, it says that charity starts at home. And for me to say that doesn't mean it ends there. You're right, because if we were in the position of the Ukrainians, we would want somebody to come to our aid, to our rescue. So you're absolutely right. We should be there helping the Ukrainian people as we are, but we can do both of those things at the same time because charity does start at home and it spreads abroad. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of charity here at home. Let's put up this tweet from Mehdi Hassan when he says, again, my issue is not with supporting Ukraine against aggression, but with how none of this spending ever gets paid for questions or dynamic scoring, blah, blah, budget hawks, talking point stuff. There's always spare cash for war, never enough for poor kids or seniors at home. Mayor, he was making your point. And I'm thinking about the urban poet right now, Tupac Shakur, in one of his songs, a verse. We got money for war, but we can't feed the poor. Come on, Tupac. He laid it out when he said those words, and his words are evergreen. They will forever, unfortunately, be true. So Mehdi hit that. He really did, and it's just amazing to me how in a bipartisan way they can do this, but they can't in a bipartisan way renew the child tax credit. They can't in a bipartisan way pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They can't in a bipartisan way pass the George Floyd Policing Act. See, they can't do none of that in a bipartisan way. Mayor, I'm tired. Woo, we going to the next story. We coming back on this stuff. Yes, we are. WTF neoliberals. This is a WTF neoliberals moment. Here we go.
We will now kneel.
Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Yeah, I never tire of that. That is what the man said. Did you know COVID is over? Yep. The Senate voted, and it turns out COVID is over because they declared it so. They ain't talked to no doctors, no scientists, no specialists. They just decided to go to the Senate floor, 63 of these folks, and declare that the pandemic is over. I can't make this stuff up, and this is why this is a WTF neoliberal moment. Let's put up this headline. Senate votes to end COVID-19 emergency declaration. The declaration has allowed the administration to take action in response to the pandemic, such as suspend student loan payment deadlines, coming from the Wall Street Journal. Senate lawmakers voted on Tuesday to end the federal government's emergency declaration on the COVID-19 pandemic, a status that has given the Biden administration tools to combat the coronavirus. The Senate voted 62 to 36 to end emergency declaration nearly 3 years after it was invoked. It is unclear if the House will take up the measure. The House hasn't taken up the measure, but the Senate has. And President Biden has made it clear that he will veto any effort. He ain't having it. I'm glad. President Biden, Okay, I'm with you on this one. Glad you're saying that, brother. He will veto any efforts to end the declaration. The Office of White House Management and Budget had this, they added this: ending the declaration would weaken the federal government's ability to respond to COVID-19 surges. Preserving our ability to respond is more important than ever as we head into the winter, when respiratory illnesses such as COVID-19 typically spread more easily. The statement said, strengthened by the ongoing declaration of national emergency, the federal response to COVID-19 continues to save lives, improve health outcomes, and support the American economy. So the White House Office on Budget or Management and Budget is saying, oh no, don't do this. The COVID emergency though, the COVID declaration has been enforced since President Donald J. Trump was in office too, and that is important for us to note. Mayor?
Yeah, I think every time I hear Marshall saying that, this is an attempt for Biden to have expand government, all I can hear in my breakdown white speak language, some people might call it my hotel language, all I can hear is it is not the United States government's ability to save Black lives. We know the inequality toll that COVID took on Black folk, and trying to slow any measure to slow down any access to funds or resources that could be pulled up when this winter starts, as we see a rise in respiratory diseases already, is a threat to Black lives. And we know that, and I wish they would just say it plainly.
Yeah, we do know that. And I think I might have said 62, or it was 62 or 63 senators that voted against that. I think it was 62. There were 12 Democrats that actually joined the ban. Let's put them up. I wish we had their smug shots, but we just got a list. But here they go: Nevada, Colorado, Virginia, Minnesota, West Virginia, Connecticut, you name it. I mean, even Senator Chuck Schumer voted to end the declaration. I want y'all to let that sink in. 12 Democrats. So yes, while we will rail against the GOP when necessary, and it's necessary in this case, let us not forget, let us not let the Democrats off the hook, because they joined in on it. Last time I checked, Democrats still got control of the Senate for now, and this lame duck mayor, even though they want to act like they don't have the power, they still indeed have the power. And given the impact of the long shadow of this pandemic, given the impact of inflation right now on folks, given the fact that people were suffering and catching all manner of hell before the pandemic, the fact that these people, my grandmother would say, Mayor, can fix their mouths, just to fix their mouths, to get up there on the floor and talk this stuff about ending this declaration and then fix their selves to vote to end the declaration is very telling. And I want to bring Bishop Jamal Bryant into the picture, because he said something very profound a few months ago. And he is the pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in the great state of Georgia, near the ATL area. But he makes a very poignant point a few months ago, and his point was this: that over 1 million people in this country have died from COVID, and we didn't even have a national mourning, Mayor. We just act like this stuff has not happened. This callous indifference to other people's suffering. And in these senators, these United States senators, who will be set for the rest of their natural lives, their kids will be set for the rest of their natural lives, and probably their kids, and their kids, and their kids after that. So they can easily go, Mayor, and just vote to end the declaration. But meanwhile, in hoods where people are misunderstood, rural hoods, urban hoods, and suburban hoods, they have shown very clearly that they don't care. And it's not only the GOP. As we put up that list one more time, Marissa, let's show them again. The Democrats that voted to end the declaration. Oh yeah, let it sink in, including Senator Chuck Schumer. They said it's okay to let it go. I want y'all to know, when we raising hell on all these folks. We ain't letting nobody off the hook when it comes to not caring about the people of this nation. You're not gonna do it. We coming back. It's getting hot in here. You know it gets hot. Stay with us.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad, and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then, by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back to the show. So happy to have Mayor Robinson here with us. We are hitting on some very hot topics. I mean, sizzling topics. We will continue to do more stories just like this. I want to remind you that Brittany Griner is not free. We do this every single day on this show. #WeAreBG. Please send up your prayers and your thoughts to her family. If there are any organizations in and around where you are, please participate, help. Let's continue to push for her to come back home, to be brought back home. We got to continue to do that. And tyt.com/relief, tyt.com/relief. We do know that our sisters and brothers and family and friends in Jackson, Mississippi still dealing with dirty water. And we must continue to do what we can as a family, a large family, to really help them. But by the grace of God, there go any of us at any moment. The infrastructure needs in this country are great, especially when it comes to water and whether you have access to clean water or not. Water is non-negotiable. It is a must. All right, so let's do that. Let's get to some of our viewer comments again, round 2. Jam says COVID is ignored. It is not over. Just ask any immunocompromised person. I know that's right, Jam. Cutting off social help to the vulnerable is what conservative neoliberals do, though. They do that. I often say we might be done with the pandemic, but the pandemic is not done with us, and especially the ripple effect that has been caused by this pandemic. We need to go big on this. You never let a crisis, don't let a good crisis go to waste. This is promising the problem. This is the time for the United States of America to go big. On Twitch, Samal says we're spiking at the moment. And we are, you are so right. We are spiking at the moment as well on the COVID cases. They make horrible decisions in Congress, in my opinion. Yeah, they do from time to time. And this one is definitely a horrible situation. I would call it another way, but I try to keep this a family show, Mayor. And on YouTube Super Chat, David Morris, Nina with Mondale is a dazzling combo. Ooh, dazzling combo. Oh yeah, I'm feeling that. We are a dazzling combo, and you're gonna see us over and over again on Unbossed. It is such a blessing. I was saying to the mayor during the break to have him with us on Unbossed. He breaks it down in ways that very few people can. And his love and his heart for the people and justice, it is resounding. We feel it, don't we? It's a ripple, Mayor. We are so glad again to have you here with us. We're gonna go straight to the whitewashing of Liz Cheney. Yeah, just because Liz Cheney believes Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, that doesn't make her a saint. Who doesn't know? Well, some people don't believe he is, but you don't get extra brownie points from me for being against Donald J. Trump. That's the easy part. Unfortunately, we've seen people popping up, especially neoliberals, coming to her rescue. I want you to check out this tweet. Occupy Democrats breaking. Liz Cheney dances on Donald Trump's political grave. Says he, quote, will never be president again, end quote, and is, quote, very clearly a very dangerous man, end quote, who is unfit for office. That's her saying these things. Retweet if you think that Liz nailed it. Well, Liz kind of sort of nailed it, but she didn't tell us anything that we do not know. Let us not forget this is a woman who voted overwhelmingly with Donald J. Trump. Don't forget that. And also a woman that did not support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, but I went a little too quick. Or remember this during the impeachment trials. Let's roll this tape.
The former president's most reliable supporters in the House tried to cancel out Representative Cheney because of her courageous and patriotic defense of the Republic and the truth and the Constitution. Who says you can't stand up against bullies? Who says? In my mind, Liz Cheney is a hero.
You know what, Mayor? They're gonna have her running for president. You go ahead. I just can't with this one.
I believe the way they sound right now, they're gonna support her in the primary more than they did Bernie. And I mean,
oh yeah.
So I mean, it's absolute. This is absolutely disgusting. Liz Cheney's policies are as dangerous as any other conservative Republican for people who live on the margins, for people who don't mint the bill. What we're seeing right now is how easy it is for white women to move back in the grace of America. Everything this woman has voted for her entire congressional career has been tragic, but for the right to impeach Donald Trump. He called it patriotic and courageous. It's actually common sense and right in our face. That's how easy it was to know that Donald Trump was guilty of something against the democracy of this country. So I think the idea that makes you courageous shows you how low the bar is for these people. And I think all of them should be challenged on this in a way that does not give them a pass. We use that word courageous and patriotic in so many other bad ways. What happened to courageous and patriotic when you see black people in Ferguson in the street risking a felony for shutting it down when they kill lives? Where's that title? I've never seen Jamie stand up in Raskin stand up in the Senate or in the House and say those same things about black protesters in Atlanta when they shot a kid for sleeping in the drive-thru. Where was that label? So I think this idea is this idea to be white and patriotic is so much easier, as we see right now with these neoliberals and Liz Cheney.
Man, you preaching the gospel. I'm telling you, the team is gonna flip out because I am about to take this mic off and just run around. I'm just this close to doing it. Really, I am. Look at this headline. Liz Cheney wasn't kidding about putting country over party. 7 weeks after Liz Cheney said she'd back Democrats because partisanship has to have a limit. Is she following through? Actually, yeah. Really, you guys? And check out the opening graph of this same article. The Wyoming Congresswoman, a lifetime conservative Republican, a member of the House GOP leadership as recently as last year, and a lawmaker who voted with Trump White House roughly 94% of the time, said she felt compelled to support Democratic candidates for the first time. Again, not doing anything courageous as the mayor just laid out. This is not courageous. Yes, this is the same lady that voted with President Donald J. Trump over 94% of the time. I want you to bold that, underline it, exclamation point, do whatever you need to do. Let's go and put this message in a bottle and somehow put country over party, really? Because she decided that everything prior to January 6th wasn't a breaking point, not racism. Mayor laid it out already. Not the inaction on COVID, not the tax breaks for billionaires. So she all of a sudden get a consciousness when it comes to jumping all over Donald Trump, which everybody is doing. Hell, well, there's some crazy ideas floating out there. Yeah, let's put this up. The House Democrats and a handful of Republicans could make Liz Cheney the Speaker of the House. They should do it. What in the Sam hell? Hell no, absolutely not. Man, I just can't. Let's play this last clip. Marissa telling us we got to wrap this thing on up to get to one of the bones, but I cannot resist. Liz Cheney says Roe v. Wade. Yeah, well, go ahead. Let's see what she said.
And that's to make sure that every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies. We have seen now in states across the country the introduction of legislation that would enable the killing of babies. This is not about abortion. This is about killing babies after they're born. The idea that we have to say today to mothers all across this country that we've got to describe what the Democrats are doing is really horrific. And I want to ask mothers across this country to join with us to make sure that we don't see our maternity wards turned into killing fields.
Jesus Christ. Now, I get that she's so-called pro-life, but they pro-birth, they not pro-life because they don't give a damn about the lives once they get here. Oh Lord, let's play what Mehdi had to, just play it.
Last night, the House passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which aims to strengthen the 1965 Voting Rights Act and protect minority voters. Parts of the VRA were, of course, gutted by our right-wing Supreme Court. The bill passed 219 to 212 on strict party lines. Not a single House Republican voted for it. Not one. Not Adam Kinzinger, not Liz Cheney.
There it is. And let's put up what my stunt double had to say about it on Twitter, because she got it right. Remember, Liz Cheney is not a hero. Neoliberals are so quick to credit a woman who voted against the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and celebrated Roe being overturned instead of black voters and organizers. Mayor, I'm gonna jump right on into the bone today, which is the jawbone, and let you come on in here because I think the one that I picked today is fitting. It's coming from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter most. That is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is so quotable. That is our jawbone for today. Mayor, take it away. I know we probably only got about 60 more seconds left, but it's all yours.
I mean, coming behind Dr. When a sermon has been preached, I don't need to say anything except amen. I will say this though. Those words are extremely powerful, not just in that moment, but right now and every day. This is why I have a problem when people say pick your battles. The day you start picking your battles, you start leaving your allies on the sideline. I don't pick battles. I go at all of them, full speed. Thank you so much for having me.
Woo, thank you, Mayor, so much for being here with us. We want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today and all that you do to keep TYT vibrant and pushing so that you can get this kind of coverage. We are sending you a whole bunch of love. You know what I want you to do? I do want you to keep the faith, but more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.